Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to create curved and angled paths, curved cues, and how to give ride bases a separate shape, such as something that's circular or angular. I get this question a lot when I'm showing off my parks in regards to how do I create curved cues, curved paths, angles, everything within that topic, and I'm here to show you how that is done. These paths themselves are also designed to be usable by guests and service workers, your staff within the park, without clipping the edges or going off the path, which is something I'll explain later on, so that way your paths and the movements and everything look completely natural. So as you'll see here, I've got several variations laid out. I've got two right angle pieces here. So I got a circular path, an angled path. You'll see here in the lower right, I've got a hub type design that goes in 4 different directions, which is curved. I've got my curved cue right over here. And then I've got my carousel, which is a 4x4 tile, which is has a circular edge. What I'm going to do next is show you what exactly goes on underneath all of this. So there's 4 mods required in order to get this to work. The 4 mods are, starting from top to bottom, is going to be ShyGuys Buildings 1. ShyGuys Building 1 contains these trim pieces, which you'll see that I line all of my paths with. Not only is it great for aesthetics and also to keep your parks looking tidy, but it's stellar at actually outlining where you're going to be placing your paths, which is something I'll show later on. The next is going to be ShyGuys Buildings 4, I believe. Yes, Buildings 4 is the one that has these particular fence pieces. These fence pieces are very important. Of course, as you can see, they're what I use to line up my paths. There are other fence pieces available in another mod I'm going to discuss shortly, but I like these because not only do they allow you to color them in multiple ways, but they just don't look as thin as the other ones, and they're just very aesthetically pleasing. I really like them. The third mod down the list is actually one of my own. This is the textured path cover mod. I'm going to pretty much say this outright. This will not work to the extent that I'm doing if you do not have my mod. Because with these textured path covers, you're not actually relying on the path itself to create a particular look. And I know I've said this already, but once further down the line, once I teach you what I've done, it's going to make a lot more sense. Last but not least is going to be the path covers mod. This one's incredibly important because you'll see that around all of my pieces of path and even the ride itself are these little planes. They're green, they're designed to match the grass or whatever other piece of land and or environment they're sitting on. Now with all of that out of the way, I'm going to give you an X-ray view to show you what everything looks like without the scenery. I'm going to turn it on and off a few times so you can kind of study it so you can understand what's going on underneath. So this is off, on, off, on. Turning it off again, take a look at the edges of some of the paths, such as this angular one right over here in the upper right corner. How there's 2 particular pieces missing. How about over on the lower left? The circular one is missing a piece over in its corner. If we look over here at the lower right, this hub has no missing path pieces, so it looks pretty concise to what it would normally look like in game. Moving on to the carousel, you'll see that the carousel is its typical 4x4 grid. There's nothing missing from the base at all. If I reactivate the scenery, you'll be able to see how you'll start to be able to piece everything together on how this is done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and expand this circular oval piece over here and show you how I do this. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and use the eyedropper tool here to get this second curve. So this second curve, this curve 2, is what I'm going to use to replicate this curved area over here. You're always going to want to align this to grid number 1, which is it's a generic grid that it starts off with. Of course, depending on the object and the mod itself, it might have a different type of grid that it wants to start on, or the grid itself might be smaller. That's fine. you always want to match it with the path grid. So that's going to be this singular tile. So I'm going to match it here on the edges, and you'll be able to see how it curves around this way. Next thing I'm going to do is take curve 1 and place it right here. That way, just like over here, you'll see that it curves inwards, so we can have that smooth transition. I'm going to collect this trim here and just place it right here, just so you can see that we have our basic path shape there. So I'm going to use the path tool and fill in the blanks. Here's where you hit a little crossroads, and it's completely up to you on how you wish to go about this. You'll see here, using the curves, there's a little itty bit of path that sticks right outside the trim. I'm personally not a big fan of this. The reason for that is that you'll see that, yes, if they make it to the very edge of the path end here, they will actually they'll clip into whatever scenery you have here and make it look like they're going off of the path themselves, giving it a very unnatural look. So that's small of a deal. It's not often that happens, but just enough so that I've noticed it. So what I'll do here is I'm going to just remove these pieces and just leave that there. I'm not too big of a fan when that happens. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the fence. And so we've got our basic shape going. So this is where my path covers mod comes in. Selecting the eyedropper tool, of course, selecting it here from the menu, I'm going to be dropping my paths so that I can fill up these sections. But, of course, how are we going to fill this up? Easy. This is where the untextured path cover mod comes in. So I'm actually going to fill in all the gaps, just like this. Using the other path cover mod, select the applicable shape, color it whatever color you need it to be, fill in the gaps. And there we go. So you can see there, that's how I created that circular piece of path. You can also see how my path mod works in conjunction with the, I guess I'll call it the classic path cover mod, because that is the OG one. It's very helpful. It's one of my favorites. I can't go without using either one of these. So now let's do one for an angled path. So this one here. So what we'll do, let's go ahead and connect these two. So they meet up at this point. Here's kind of where I hit a crossroads. I'm also not a big fan of these right angle turns, unless it's a design decision on your part. That's totally okay. I myself, that will drive me crazy. Unless I absolutely have to, I love transitioning into either diagonals or curvatures. In this case, what I'll do is I'm going to make it a curve. So I'll make that update there. Add that there. Path cover here. Fence. Fence 1. And fixed. So in my opinion, see how that flows much better? Looks a lot more natural, it looks cleaner, and it doesn't have that very sharp, jagged look as if it would have just been a right angle. Unless, once again, as advised, that's what you're going for specifically. So let's do something interesting here. We'll create a diagonal path that heads up this way and equalizes, we'll say about right here. And we'll say this section over here will be its own. So we'll have a junction. We'll make something a little bit more complex. You know what? Actually, just kidding. I am not a big fan of that. Get out of there. We'll stick to what I initially wanted to do here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so laying down the path tiles. Once again, avoiding those edges there. Here's actually what I am going to do. Remove these. Fill in the gaps. Add my fences and or shops, whatever you wish. Use the triangle piece to cover up these parts. And boom, I've made another junction there. Not as elegant as I would like it to be. And as you can tell, my brain was kind of all over the place. My basic building instinct started to kick in on what I particularly wanted to see. But doesn't matter. This is just designed to be a tutorial, of course. So there you're able to see how paths can be connected, covering up those I guess those off-roading sections where my paths stick out. Of course, you delete that. Once again, you'll be able to see how everything works together and why it's so important to use this particular set of mods together. If not, you're not going to be able to achieve the look that I'm able to create. Now, granted, you can do all of this with just the generic path cover mod. The biggest issue that I have with that is actually right here. You'll see here in the carousel, the base of the ride itself is untextured. There's just no definition to it at all. If that's your thing, totally okay, but for me personally, it's not what I like seeing. For small bases such as rides, well, actually rephrase that. For small areas such as a flat ride, that's completely fine with me. It's not going to kill me. If my entire park was just nothing but solid colored brown all over the place, of course there'd be variations in color depending on theme, whatever the case may be. It would still drive me crazy. It's something that I did at my Zephyrwood Park, which you're able to see the previous video, which shows my entire park using those the path covers itself versus my textured ones. That's actually what inspired me to make this path cover mod that I made with the textured path covers. Is I love being able to do this. I just hate that it didn't look the way I wanted it to look. The next thing that I'm going to go over is the ride bases themselves. So I'm going to use a balloon race as an example. Actually, you know what? Nah, just kidding. I'm going to use something else. Spiral slide. Use something smaller. So just as usual, you'll pick entrance, exit. Now, whenever you want to do what I've done here to the carousel to any flat ride, you're going to want to go into its settings panel and disable fences. Disabling the fences is what's going to give you free reign to construct around it. So with this one being a 4x4 attraction, this is pretty easy. You can do one of two ways. You can either use the convex pieces to create a curved ride base, or you can use the triangle pieces, wherever they are, down here at the bottom. You can use the triangle pieces to create a more angled look. Of course, the bigger the attraction itself, the more legroom you'll have to make it look a little bit more smooth than this, where this flat portion at the top isn't needed. But you get the point. So just like with the paths, same exact scenario. You can use the trims to dress up the edges, give it that outline, the definition needed to separate it from the rest. And I'm going to place diagonal trims here as well. Use the eye brush, so color it the same as the others. Using the eyedropper tool again, just copy the fences from the carousel over here. Place them exactly as you would as the paths. Diagonal fence. Eyedropper again. Get rid of this one. Alright, there we go. So the basic shape of the attraction is done. Using the triangles. And there we go. We have successfully hit it so that it looks like this is the typical ride base. Now let's say, for example, in my parks you're going to see a lot that my rides tend to be in the center of a midway. It's very rare that I'll ever actually place anything out in the open like this. Occasionally I'll do it, but not often. So let's say the spiral slide itself was completely surrounded by path. So let's say this right here is the park itself. Alright, so here's our park. We've got our wonderful queue right here. And we've got our path here. Let's say that this is the edge of the path over here. Backside of the park, boonies, no one really comes back here, except for the slide, of course. Make a circular rear here. I'm going to take the trims. Just for kicks, we'll say that this is going out there. This right here is going to a separate direction. And we'll just close this off right here. Alright, so here we've got this giant patch area here just for one attraction. That's alright. Okay, so here's what we're going to do next, is we're going to go ahead and dress up this area. So I'm going to just take over this path texture. Now, here's a fun fact. The planes that I have my path textures on from my own textured path covers mod, they are just ever so slightly under the untextured path cover mod, the basic path covers mod that's been around forever. This one right here, the green one. What this means is this. Those path covers hide mine. That's actually something that was evident back over here. So why I'm mentioning that again, which I just had realized there's some redundancy there. This is what's going to help you with the ride basis. So you'll see there that even though the ride base is surrounded by my path cover, it's not actually a path itself. I'm going to take the concave here, block that out. Alright, so I need a separate one, concave, convex too, that's it. This one right here to fill up these areas, but I won't get too crazy into this because this is pretty much essentially the end of my tutorial. Just kind of wanted to show you how to tie everything together. Yep, you'll be able to see how everything just smoothly transitions around. The spiral slide is now smack dab in the middle of this path area that, as I had this, your guests can completely walk around. You'll of course be able to attach lights, benches, trash bins, anything that you need. They're fully functional, of course, up to the extent of however far out the path tiles themselves go, but like I said, fully functional is the most important thing. That the guests are able to use them, they're able to navigate around the park, and you are able to attach those scenery items to them. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Of course, I am Max Reek, one of the moderators on the official Parkitect Discord, so feel free to reach out to me on there if you have any additional questions, as well as all about Parkitect and theme park and zoo simulation games on Facebook. Those are all groups that I'm a part of and I actively post in. So if you see me anywhere around there, feel free to say hi, ask me any questions. I'm happy to help. Hopefully this was helpful in answering how I'm able to achieve the results that I do with my parks. I know I rambled for a bit there, but hopefully this will be able to get you up and running and helping you where you need to be. What I'm going to show you next is a park that I've actually shown off quite a bit, but it's been a while. But it shows the culmination of all of the skills that I've put together in kind of in the realm of visual trickery. As you can see, a lot of this is about illusion, perspective, what the player can or can't see, being able to hide certain things to achieve a specific look. A lot of it comes from combining colors, hiding, all that fun stuff. So with that, you'll see here that I've managed to create elevated, curved, and angular paths here. So you'll be able to see how all of this comes together with my guests walking around. Completely elevated paths. You'll see here I've got my ride here in the center. Even a restaurant. Well, technically food court area right over here. Got my diagonals. Circular. I've got scenery pieces, trash bins, lights, tables. Got a bridge, shops. And then of course coming down here towards the entrance of the park, which has this massive circular pathway with shops, seating areas filled with scenery. So I hope you enjoyed the video and that this was of some help. I'd love to see what you're able to create with all of this.